My name is Andrzej Marcinkowski. I represent the Technical University of Lodz, in the Faculty of Management and Production Engineering. And that's a great privilege for me to be able to welcome everyone warmly today at the very beginning of the free journey, officially called Transnational Learning Journey, which is organized within the project LCA4Regions with the main subject training and capacity building. So today I'm going to run this session as a moderator, and the main responsibility of mine is to present the agenda for today and also the control the time framework of the presentations. So let's see the agenda of today. I hope it's visible. So we are going to start with the introductory speech by the Deputy Director of Landscape Parks of the Lodzkie Region, Katarzyna Krakowska. Then we are going to learn about policy of Lodzkie Region connected with licensing assessment. And this presentation will be provided by Agnieszka Bednarska-Bernatek, the main specialist in the Department of Regional Policy of the Marshal's Office of the Lodzkie Region. Then we are going to switch to a series of three presentations, starting with the first presentation of the representative of Czestochowa University of Technology, Professor Tomasz Nitkiewicz. The presentation title is Life Cycle Training Needs of the Public and Private Sectors in Poland. And then the middle presentation provided by Adrianna Kozłowska, the Director of Learning Centers of Lodz University of Technology, titled The Role of Academic Sector in Stimulating Development in Training and Capacity Building for LCA. And the last presentation given by the representative of industry sector, namely Geotechnical Engineer Dawid Jasiński. And the title of the presentation is Cooperation between Science and Business for the Development of LCA. And at the end, the Managing Director of ACR Plus, Francesco Lembo, is going to summarize the entire day. We are going to finish today's session at around 11:30. And I would like to invite you to listen to the first introduction to our meeting given by the Deputy Director of Landscape Parks of the Lodzkie Region, Katarzyna Krakowska, who will be speaking on behalf of the board of the Lodzkie Region.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome everyone. And in behalf of the board of the Lodzkie Region, I would like to welcome you to today's meeting. My name is, as it was said, Katarzyna Krakowska, and I'm a head of the Landscape Parks Complex of the Lodzkie Region. My unit deals with the protection of nature and landscape in our region. We also cooperate very closely with the Lodzkie Region to implement innovative projects related to nature protection, biodiversity conservation, and development, especially sustainable development. Hence, I do represent a unit which has statutory objectives focused on issues related to reducing the negative impact of economic development on the environment. I can therefore say that beyond that, Lodzkie Region is taking actions aimed at running a sustainable economic policy based on rational use of natural resources. It is provided by the strategy of Lodzkie Region, of the Lodzkie Region Strategy 2030, which includes concrete actions aiming at transformation of regional economy into closed circle and climate neutral one. An example of sustainable development are also the activities undertaken by my unit, by the unit I manage, and the Lodzkie region as well. We do this together. I would like to mention only two of the projects. The first one consists, the first one name is Memorial Fruits, and it consists of restoring traditional fruits orchards which will disappear forever, for sure will disappear, if we do not take care of them. Since the beginning of the project, that is during 2 years, we have planted over 40 orchards with old fruit trees. In total, over 2.5 thousand fruit trees. The second project, Let's Green Up Lodzkie Region, aims to combine climate change by planting trees and shrubs in the public spaces of our region. Here we have also boast on impressive result. We planted more than 100,000 trees on the Lodzkie Region area. Similar goals and inspirations brings us together to today's meeting. So I hope that through this meeting we will share knowledge and good practices for the best management of resources. I wish you fruitful deliberations and innovative ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction and a couple of additional information connected with the projects of the Lodzkie region. And now, according to our agenda, we are going to listen to the presentation on the policy of Lodzkie region connected with life cycle assessment. And the presentation will be given by by Agnieszka Bednarska-Bernatek. And this is additional information, quite an important one, that this topic is also should be treated as a topic for the peer review session, which will be held on Thursday in 2 days. So that will be the session titled Regional Policy in the Context of Opportunities and Challenges for the Development of the Circular Economy and Life Cycle Assessment Methodology. Okay, I can see the prelegent, so the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to my presentation. I would like to welcome first all the partners of the project and everyone interested in the idea of circular economy and life cycle approach. So my name is Agnieszka Bednarska-Bernatek. I work in the Marshal's Office of the Lodzkie Voivodeship in the Department of Regional Policy. I'm a chief expert in the unit for regional development. Well, I specialize in strategic planning and regional operational programs. I've gained my experience working for public institutions at the national and now at regional levels. So I think my perspective is quite broad. I'm responsible for drafting or co-drafting strategic documents in the field of regional development, with particular emphasis on the issues of entrepreneurship, innovation, and revitalization. So I have a privilege and pleasure to start presenting our region and to show how the idea of circular economy is embedded in strategic and operational documents of our region. So now let me share my presentation. Okay, is it seen? Let me make sure.
Yes, that's visible.
Okay. So in my short presentation, I will concentrate on the documents where the idea of circular economy is depicted of our regional strategic and operational documents as well. So I would concentrate on the development strategy for the Lodzkie region 2030, regional operational program for the Lodzkie Voivodeship, the years 2014-2020, and European funds for Lodzkie 2027, as well as a new document in our system, which is Territorial Just Transition Plan of the Lodzkie region. Okay, sorry, okay. So let's start with the development strategy for the Lodzkie region 2030. I can say that it's a new document because it was adopted by our regional self-government, our Sejmik, in May this year. And of course, it is the document which defines developmental trends, challenges that we have to face. It sets our developmental goals. It outlines the ways how we want to achieve them. Well, it's a document which sets the way, we can say, we want to go during the next 10 years to get the vision, to achieve the vision that we want to, that we formulated as a harmoniously developing region in the center of Poland. We want it to be friendly to inhabitants, to families, inhabitants of cities and rural areas. And especially we want the region to be modern, with modern economy, and the economy should go together with the protection of cultural and natural values. As you may expect, well, the document touches many areas, touches many spheres of life, everyday life. But as we are meeting to talk about circular economy, I would like to focus on this part in the document. So the document, as one of the development trends, identifies circular economy. Well, the basic assumption, as you know very well, is the use of waste generated in the production process for another process. We can say that this is quite a simple notion, put straightforwardly, but it can be used in a much broader sense. So in our strategy, you can read that the concept assumes the rational use of available resources through the lowest possible use of non-renewable resources, reducing the amount of waste stored and minimizing the negative impact of this process on the environment, as well as extending the life cycle of products. Well, we are aware that in the new perspective, a greater concentration of funds is assumed for innovation, for support of small enterprises, digital technologies, and modernization of the industry. So we can see that this can be a chance for our companies by means of using, well, circular economy assumptions and life cycle approach, being more competitive and thus create a better economy of our region. I think that it's worth mentioning that this process of industrial transformation of the voivodeship assumes the widest possible implementation of circular economy. And of course, the notion is placed in many places of the document, is put in many places, and it touches many spheres of life, because we are aware that it's not as simple as only putting it in the sphere of entrepreneurship, small and medium enterprises, and the economy. So there are some points mentioned, like even reduction of food losses or wastage and management of food chains. So we can see in many spheres the chance to introduce the circular economy concept. I think it will be very fruitful. So in fact, we set 3 strategic goals in our development strategy, but the one which goes directly with and realizes directly the assumption of life cycle analysis, life cycle approach and circular economy is modern and competitive economy. Well, so how to do that? By increasing competitiveness of enterprising. And of course, we can do this in many different ways. But what we wanted to stress is implementing pro-ecological solutions in SMEs, adaptation of the municipal waste collection system to the requirements of the circular economy, of course, supporting construction, expansion and modernization of collection points, repair points for damaged services, municipal waste sorting and reloading stations, and the development of the deposit system for packaging. This is just a selection of actions and projects that we came up with, but I think they show in a very clear way that it is put straightforwardly, and that the wording is also used as such as to make this phrase more and more popular. In our strategy, we have so-called integrated strategic projects. So we defined 7 so-called integrated strategic projects, which first of all constitutes a strategic choice, and they prioritize activities provided for in the development policy. This approach also fits into the project approach applied at all the levels of project implementation. So integrated strategic projects are bundles of projects, the main goal of which is to achieve impact within all spheres specified in the strategy. So we treat them as a collection of projects from the economic, social, and spatial sphere to get the synergy effect in the implementation of the strategy. So one of our integrated strategic projects is called Clean Environment, and it deals with a set of activities which should improve, which should make the environment in a much better condition than it is now. And here you can see a selection of projects that can be realized, that can be implemented within this integrated strategic project. So as you can see, of course, we want to improve the system of collecting, segregating and processing waste. We are fond of reclamation of closed municipal landfills for non-municipal waste, creating an installation, monitoring system and processes and products of the circular economy, implementation of investment projects regarding sewage and water supply networks and sewage treatment plants, and some actions in the field of blue and green infrastructure are very welcome. Well, because our time is quite restricted, let's go to operational documents. Well, so at the moment, we are, of course, implementing our regional operational program for Lodzkie Voivodeship for the current perspective. And well, even if this was the perspective which was not maybe, which did not reflect the idea of circular economy very strongly, because, well, to the best of my knowledge, although the idea was coined, well, in the 60s, in the previous century, it was promoted and it was, well, it was promoted in the second decade of this century with the European Commission support. So even if in our current regional program, you will not find the circular economy phrase, you can find some activities which are written into this area. So I would like to stress, I would like to show 2 of them, which is, well, increasing the competitiveness of SMEs. And we supported implementation of innovative products, processes of manufacturing products and providing services. And we wanted to include eco-innovation. So these were, we can say, the first activities which were in line with the project, with the circular economy idea, with the circular economy notion. And the second one I would like to stress is a waste management. So this we were supporting investments in the scope of infrastructure for selective collection and treatment of waste. So recycling, composing of waste, preventing waste generation and promoting reuse. So now some actions are being taken and some projects are being supported. Now we are preparing our new program, European Funds for Lodzkie 2027. So we are in the process of developing the regional program. Of course, it will be a strategy for spending and investing EU funds in our region in the period 21-27, and it goes in line with the assumptions of our strategy, of course. So now, as you will see, of course, it is just a project already because, well, the whole process of consultation and first of all, adoption has not been finished. But in the document now, we can find priorities which address directly the circular economy notion and circular economy approach. So in the priority innovative Łódzkie, we can find a strategic objective enhancing sustainable growth and competitiveness of SMEs and job creation in SMEs, including by productive investments. And here in this part, implementation of solutions in the field of circular economy will be supported. So as you can see, it is very directly stated that this kind of implementations will be supported. Well, another priority is green region, because we want to have our region green and friendly to everyone. So we should take care of it. So in strategic objective number 5, we want to support promoting access to water and sustainable water management. So as you can see, we think about supporting efficient water management. So want to support investments in water supply infrastructure, monitoring system, water recovery and reuse installations, investments in dual sewage systems, enabling the use of grey water in toilets. So these are the activities that we would like to support. And again, in the same area of green region, which is in line with policy objective number 2, policy objective of the EU, we want to support promoting the transition to a circular and resource efficient economy. So again, we address very directly to this notion and we want it to be known and used. So investments in the field of separate collection, installations for cleaning separately collected waste or recycling waste will be supported. Investment aimed at preventing waste or promoting reuse, as well as investments supporting circular economy in enterprises. As I stated before, the whole process of preparing the European Funds for Lodzkie, our new operational program, is not finished, has not been finished, and it's still there are discussions and consultations, and this is really a very important and very interesting stage of elaborating the document, because we can share the experiences, we can listen to new ideas. In fact, there is a hope to green the entire program. So we think about maybe being more detailed in documents that will have to be prepared later on, like project selection criteria or expenditure eligibility, to implement more green issues and principles of circular economy. I must also stress that cooperation with the promotion department is very important, and the Interreg projects with their results and the results of these projects. So they are very useful, and we also look very closely at the results, and we want to implement them in our regional program as well. And the last document, which is quite new, I would say, in our system of regional strategic documents, is a territorial just transition plan for Lodzkie region. Well, this is a transformation plan for one of our areas, for the Bełchatów Basin, which is developed by the Lodzkie region, and it is related to the launch of the Just Transition Fund. So this, as you perfectly know, this Just Transition Fund is going to support coal regions affected by the negative effects of socio-economic changes in connection with the transition to a climate-neutral economy and the end of coal mining. As you can see in the map, well, this area of transformation is maybe not very vast as far as the whole area of our region is concerned, but it has a very big impact on our region. So its impact is also economic, but also social. So we have to be very careful about this area. And out of 3 strategic goals, we can say that 2 are in line with circular economy approach and with life cycle approach as well. So the first strategic goal is, well, to get the competitive, innovative and climate neutral economy based on intelligent development, diversified industry, modern technologies and attractive workplaces. So this is very important for this area because many people are involved in working for the coal mine, but also around it. And well, we stress intelligent development in diversified industry. So I think that we can't deny the importance of circular economy principles. So we will create companies, we hope to create companies related to a green and low carbon economy. And we will support business activities implementing the idea of circular economy, including those dealing with the management of combustion byproducts and of course in accordance with the circular economy principle. Again, this project has not been adopted yet, it's a project, right? But the ideas and the goals and the actions, I hope will be implemented when it is adopted and when the whole idea will be put into practice. And the second strategic goal concentrates on people because they also need well help in the transformation process. So we aim at a qualified, aware and active society with equal access to quality public services, and we plan comprehensive support in the field of career counseling, job placement, organization of vocational training for employees, living work, and obtaining new qualifications, and among others in the field of renewable energy and the circular economy. So we also want to make a kind of shift from the kind of industry that they operate in right now to this new approach of and new maybe fields for them of renewable energy and circular economy. So we hope to see the possibility of conducting in the field of implementing the environmental life cycle assessment and of course build LCA capacity. So this was the brief outline of the 4 documents that I think are now the most important, where the idea of life cycle approach and circular economy is very vivid. So thank you for your attention. I hope my presentation was clear and I managed to show how this idea is depicted in the documents, in the both strategic and operational documents. And I think that it is clearly seen that our region has been experiencing a kind of evolution in thinking about economy, the environment, and the processes between them. So thank you very much for your kind attention, and I'm giving the floor to other panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. And maybe, because as I mentioned, this topic will be connected with our Prepeer review session. So it will be quite an important one. And that's why I got a question to the rest of us. Do you have any question maybe for this presentation?
Andrzej, maybe I have very short question to the presenter, and very interesting and very ambitious plans for the region. So, but still would like to know if there are some LCA life cycle assessment tools and methods foreseen already in the regional planning, in the regional documents, or some programs.
So I have a proposal to put maybe this question, and I will try to prepare the answer, and maybe during the question and answer session we will develop it more thoroughly. So I would be grateful for that. Is that okay?
Okay, Agnieszka, thank you very much. I think it's maybe too straight and too straightforward asking me, ask you, but really it is very interesting to know how the policy makers in the Lodzkie regions, they try to develop or try to integrate and to use the life cycle assessment tools and methods, because we need from other regions, from Lithuania points of view, and our policymakers, they really want to know about how other regions they incorporate, how they use, and what are the practices. But of course, we will have all these 3 sessions today and 2 days after. So we will discuss. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And in my opinion, this is a great idea and great suggestion to send some questions via email, preferably, or via chat as well. So please do it, please ask the questions. And now we are going to switch into a series of the main presentations for today, given by the representatives of both academic and industrial sectors representatives. And the first presentation, titled LCA Training's Needs of the Public and Private Sectors in Poland, is going to be given by Professor Tomasz Nitkiewicz from Czestochowa University of Technology. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you as well for the previous presentation that show us the capacity and the willingness of Lodzkie region to deal with these environmental challenges with the use of life cycle assessment. As for me, I'm LCA practitioner and academician. For several years, I work with different problems using life cycle approach. And I would like to share with you my view on the topic, perhaps to show you how this LCA tool could be streamlined within the regional policies, and perhaps with some attitude that is useful for regional authorities and regional stakeholders. So this is my topic, and I would briefly start with LCA. I guess most of the participants are quite well informed or are quite proficient in doing LCAs. But I would like to underline that, first of all, LCA is an environmental management tool. So if we take LCA as a classic toolbox, then we deal with environmental issues only. So that's the important aspect of LCA. Of course, we have the tool developed already to include all the sustainability issues like economic or social ones as well. But as its core, let's remember it's an environmental management tool, and it is to support decision making. So that's the important part of LCA, to support the decisions, and that's why we use it to know what to do with our, let's say, regional policies and strategies to avoid environmental problems, to mitigate them, or just to develop in a sustainable way. And all the stages of LCA procedure could be determined by these decisions. So we should use the tool according to the problem, to the issue that we have at hand. The second slide is dedicated to the possible uses of LCA. I would like to point out that classic LCA was dedicated to products only. And when the environmental issues start to bother us more and more, then the scope of LCA was enlarged to the processes, perhaps to organization, and also to the strategic dimension. The reasons to use LCA at first were related to the product performance, and it was both environmental performance, as we take a look at the classic Coca-Cola example of aluminum cans that was assessed with LCA, like decades ago. And it was also used for marketing purposes. So if the customer is taking care of environmental issues, for sure, they would appreciate the environmental benefits or advantages of the products. But if we go to the regional level, for sure, we should have a strategic approach while doing LCA. And this is more complex. And the complexity of it is shown on the example. So let's assume that we look at some strategic documents or programs within Lodzkie region. One of those could be a program related to supporting the switch from traditional energy sources to renewable energy sources, supporting directly organization and individuals. And it could be that the object of the assessment is this photovoltaic cell that could be a replacement for our classic coal-fired installations. The process that is included here is like electricity production. So we could use LCA to optimize this process while these photovoltaic cells are in use. Then we could perform an LCA on the organization. So let's imagine a small factory or business unit installing these photovoltaic cells on the roof and taking the electricity, changing the electricity mix and comparing the situation before and after these installations. And finally, we go to the strategic scope of LCA. So we could try to perform such an assessment for all the region. So include all individuals and perhaps their energy policy and decisions related to the energy sources that they are using, all organizations that are included there, and the processes. By processes, we mean classic processes like industrial ones, but also we mean like consumption or mobility related processes that every one of us is doing. And if we translate these scopes of LCA to the potential applications, so we could use it to improve our photovoltaic cells. For example, end-of-life scenarios for these cells are at the stake right now, what to do with these cells when their life cycle is finished. This is important part. We could produce environmental product declaration out of LCA. So this is a simplified version of such an assessment. We could define monitoring parameters for the region or for the organization that would be a proof of our environmental switch towards a more friendly one. Or we could use the LCA results as an information to bring in some investors to Lodzkie region to show up how sustainable, how environmentally aware, the region is. So the potential use of LCA is very broad, but also quite complex, engaging a lot of stakeholders, actors, and including a lot of decision making. And in the context of a region, as I briefly outlined of the previous slide, we of course have the citizens that are, if we look at the official definition of any region in Poland, the region is a group of citizens that live there. So there are the key group to assess if we attempt regional LCA. Of course, we have industries and organizations, let's say, because it's not only a factory, it's also a school or a library or garden that contribute to the region and contributes to what is assessed by LCA. We have also authorities that have the decision power and that could influence this regional framework for the assessment and its future changes within the scope of environmental issues and perhaps in line with some life cycle assessment results. This framework is quite complex, so we could take a look at some newly introduced instrument like circular economy strategy. It is also, as we saw before in the presentation before, it is also at stake of Lodzkie region as well. We could have some renewable energy strategies or thermal insulation of buildings, or we could see some alternative fuels being developed. We could see some strategic efforts to change the mobility infrastructure and habits. So it's a really complex issue. We have also a neighborhood of any region that is quite important in the context of regional assessment because this neighborhood is within the network of the region that is an object of the assessment. So it's a very active relationship. Usually it's not only, let's say, labor mobility, but it's also very important flow of goods between the neighboring regions. And perhaps some policy frameworks that connects the neighboring regions, perhaps all the regions, perhaps many countries within the European Union. So as we see, the stakeholders or the agents impacting regional LCA is very broad. And it's again the justification of the project we are meeting because of. So LCA4Region is a complex issue, and we need to find out specific patterns or approaches to deal with it. It's a difficult task, I would say, as an LCA practitioner. Because of this differentiation of the stakeholders and their engagement in the assessment, because of this really flexible and dynamic context of any regional assessment. So it's very complex issue to have LCA for the region. First of all, we need to define what is being assessed. So if we take like a static perspective, perhaps it would be possible if we just count the citizens, count the factories, just bring out some statistical data on the emissions, on the processes, on the flow of goods and employees and so on. But we could also take a dynamic approach and try to capture all the specificity of the region. Finally, we need to know why do we assess it. We just don't need another tome of results, but we just need decisions that make, for example, Lodzkie region better concerning the environmental issues. When we get to some conclusions concerning the scope and the objective of our assessment, then we need to get all the stakeholders involved, because the data would come from many different sources. I will get into that in a moment. Then after or in the middle of the assessment, we need to find some possibilities to improve the system, the network, the objective of our assessment. So we need to find some patterns that are not so good for our environment, and we need to try to change it. We need to establish a monitoring system. For that, we need to update our strategies and policies according to the ongoing assessment, and we need to set short-term and long-term goals for the assessment. Finally, we need to make people and organization involved in this decision-making, in making a change. So this is the most important part of any regional LCA, to have the individuals and organization and authorities involved in the process of changing the reality we are in. If we have a look at the data, of course, we need some specific data on the processes and products that are specific for any region. We need some macro statistics on the people working, studying, on the people traveling every day or just for the weekends. We need to have some patterns concerning the behavior of all the stakeholders, and perhaps we need some data on consumption. At some point, taking a look at the regional LCA practice, we could point out some specific areas for the assessment. Usually this is mobility, this is consumption and production within the region, agriculture and land use, the public sector concerning the units within this public sector, but also concerning the strategic framework and housing as an important factor of any assessment. If we would like to draw up the strategic framework for all these areas, we would end up with tons of documents, thousands of pages that would try to maybe not regulate, but to settle a framework. And among these frameworks, we could also see very important funding possibilities for changing these unfavorable patterns concerning the environment. We discussed it a little bit in a previous presentation, so I will not go into the details concerning those programs. But I guess this is also similar for all the regions involved in our consortium, and this is also similar for all the regions within this EU framework, that we have some EU strategic documents and objectives. We have some national documents related to the environmental policy, to the mobility, to waste management, to rural areas development. And we have some regional agendas for that, including the financing possibilities. Now I would like to face the LCA capacity with Bloom's taxonomy. Perhaps this is one of the issues you are not aware of concerning the content of my presentation, or not all of you. Bloom's taxonomy is just the assessment of the graduates and students concerning their capacity, their competences. And Bloom named several levels of these competences. Of course, we start with the bottom of this pyramid with some basic competences, and with more experience, more higher level education, we go up the pyramid. So I just compared these Bloom taxonomy levels to the possible scopes of LCA and objectives of its use. So at the top, we have like designing. So let's say defining, developing a regional policy program that takes into account the LCA results and try to change it. Do we need LCA experts for that? For sure, we need them. But the question is where we need to have them. What institution, organization, units, or even personal, even individual people would need to get involved? I would try to answer on the example of one of the program. I already mentioned it. It's the My Electricity program. It's quite simple. You install a photovoltaic cell on your roof. You connect to the electricity network. You sign the agreement for supporting this network with your PVC electricity, and you apply for a refund for these photovoltaic cells. We have several stakeholders involved there, and the question is which of them should be an LCA expert here. So where do we place this expert? Is it a citizen or a company that install the cell? Maybe the installation company, perhaps a grid operator, or the fund management responsibles. We don't know that for sure, but in my opinion, the LCA expert should provide a general framework. So should assess first what would be the environmental outcome of switching to photovoltaic cells in the short and in the long term, should settle the technological possibilities for achieving some environmental goals, should know what would be the scale effect of these changes, should compare it perhaps with some economic scenarios for this change, and find some compromise between them should establish a horizon of these changes, and all of this should lead to strategic decision making. So what would be the program, how it would be evaluated, measured, what would be the milestones of this program. So one or a group of LCA experts could provide us with very important data on decision making within the region. So if we compare these LCA competencies, starting from the citizen or organization without any, then going to the responsible citizen, let's call them like this, or citizens or organizations that are able to provide some data for LCA that understand its results and perhaps could contribute to some decision on their own with these results. Then we have, I call them environmentalists, but by that I mean that these are the people who really include the environmental issues in their decision making. If we go further, we have LCA practitioners and LCA experts who we need in designing the programs. So where do we find this expert? First, we could raise an expert. So we could use one of the possibilities to have a graduate with LCA knowledge. Lodz University of Technology offers several programs on that with the modules, courses, or specializations related to LCA as well. It is similar, maybe less technical approach in the University of Łódź. Even Academy of Fine Arts in Łódź offers some eco design courses that would be important with regards to LCA assessment of products. We could also hire an expert or from the industry or from LCA or environmental consulting companies or R&D sector. Perhaps we could use some support of institutions dedicated to support environment protection within our country. We could also become an expert by training ourselves using different resources. We have many companies providing software. We have environmental counseling, all of them organizing courses, workshops for LCA competences. We have LCA centers of excellence, so we could get involved there as a trainee to get some meaningful feedback. And of course, we could use our network, our consortium to develop our competences between the regions and countries. We could do it also within the industrial network and partners. And of course, we could try to learn by ourselves. We have also multiple accessible resources on that, like Open LCA Nexus. It's an LCA platform offering really good opportunities for self-training. The similar life cycle initiative it's connected to this Open LCA Nexus and offering also many links for partners with whom we could train our LCA competences. Finally, we have LCA related projects. Of course, our project is dedicated to this as well, and within the project we could also work on our competences. And of course, we have these software developers. I point out them as a good point of starting your LCA competences, since the competences are related to a specific software you could immediately use. And to sum up my presentation, I just sketched these 4 points of our capacity building within LCA. First of all, we need to identify what we need in the context of LCA for specific region. So what do we need to assess? What the decisions are at stake at these results? Then we could check out, first of all, our project consortium, our network of partners from academia, industry, from other regional authorities. We should mobilize the stakeholders in order to get this involvement in LCA training and competence building. And finally, we have to use the competences. I guess this is one of the most difficult parts. Perhaps our regional partners would be willing to discuss it as well. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm at your disposal answering any questions or discussing any issues related to LCA training and competences need within the context of regional LCA. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you. Thank you. So yes, that's now we've got the time to answer questions and answer session until 10. So please ask your questions. Do you have any questions for this presentation?
Perhaps I would start this question session. My question is to Agnieszka, who was presenting the regional policy context. And as we saw, circular economy is one of the key directions toward Lodzkie region. So my question is, do we have like intention and maybe a plan to use life cycle approach within this circular economy context? So I would really appreciate an information on that. I'm not sure if it's really specific in regional development plan for the next financing period, but if it is, maybe we could hear also some of the insights on that. Thank you.
Well, so just a short answer. As you could notice, I presented documents which were at a very general level, right? The strategy of the regional operational program, or even the transition plan for the Lodzkie, are the documents which just outline the directions, outline the measures which are going to be taken. So as you also could see, our strategy is from May. Our regional operational program, the funds for European funds for Lodzkie 2027, is in the process of consultation. The same is with the transition plan. So at the moment in these documents, I think, in my opinion, it's impossible to put directly, well, to mark directly, for example, the life cycle assessment approach. Well, we mentioned circular economy assumptions as a basis for future actions. This is my perspective, right? And there are, well, many other documents are necessary to be prepared and necessary to be elaborated. So I think these notions will be probably developed at later stages. But if I could ask also my colleagues, who will just join the conversation, maybe they could answer this question in a more detailed way.
Thank you very much for answering. My question, of course, had a purpose, perhaps to make life cycle management or approach more present in this program. So that's why we are addressing it right now, perhaps in the final document to have a better coverage. For that, our topic for the meeting is training and capacity building. So perhaps this could be maybe not a big part, but just a part of the program. So that's
Okay.
what we
What
should.
I can also advise is just to follow the process of consultations, because everything is public and you can also join. And well, you've probably also joined the process of pre-consultations right now at this stage. And as I'm saying, we can even treat it as a pre-consultation process, pre-consultation stage. So, well, I think that the whole process of coming up with the final version of the document is still going on, is still in progress. This is one part, but on the other hand, I think that some more specific solutions, the better place for them is to be put in some in the documents which constitute the system of implementation of EU funds, for example, in our voivodeship.
Thank you very much. And we can see that Dr. Fritz Balkau has some question to Professor Nitkiewicz. Can you ask your question?
Thank you. Excellent presentation. Congratulations. I have 2 points I'd like to make. One is a short one and one is maybe a little longer. The short one is that...
excuse me, because we can hardly hear you. So could you increase the volume of your voice?
Okay. All right. I have two points. Can you hear me better now?
Yes,
A little bit better.
Okay. The 2 points I'd like to make. First one is on circular economy. I don't think it's efficient to treat circular economy as a recycling issue. We're already doing recycling, and sometimes we do it well, sometimes we don't do it so well. But circular economy is much more than a recycling program. It's a materials management program. And we need to look at the materials that are in the waste and manage them further upstream. So circular economy needs to take the entire cycle of the materials into account, not just when they become waste. Okay, that's a particular thing. The other point I want to make on the applicability of life cycle assessment and other life cycle methodologies. When it comes to regions, I think we need to differentiate several different functions of the region, because the way life cycle assessment then is used depends on what the functions are. First function of a region is to define policies. We've had some excellent examples given in the previous description. The second function of a region is as a regulator. So the third function of the region is to provide infrastructure services. And the final function of the region is as a corporation. More and more regions have become corporations. For each of these functions is a particular type of life cycle methodology that can apply. For a corporate function, for example, you've already mentioned the function of organizational life cycle assessment. As a service provider, the region behaves as a corporation, as a company that provides a product and should provide an LCA assessment of the function of this infrastructure that it's providing. As a regulator, it should be able to assess the LCA of the products that are being regulated. So when we see the different functions of the regions, we can see that a number of different life cycle methodologies and application come into play. Now, this could become a long story. I just want to make the point that we need to differentiate the functions of the region when we talk about the relevance of life cycle assessment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In general, I agree with that comment, and in my presentation, the strategic scope of LCA should include the different functions. Maybe I didn't name them in the presentation, but that's the complexity of the strategic approach toward LCA assessment, that we need to deal with different scopes of LCA, and within the region it's even more complex because of the vast number of stakeholders, processes, issues, landscape and infrastructures involved. Thank you very much once again for your contribution to the discussion.
Okay, thank you very much for your voices. And according to our agenda, we should jump into the second presentation connected with and given by the representative of academic society, namely Ada Kozłowska, who is going to give you the presentation on the role of the academic sector in stimulating development in training and capacity building for LCA. Ada Kozłowska is a director of Learning Center of Lodz University of Technology. So our floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrzej.
Excuse me, I should add one important remark. This is very important. So this is the part of your presentation, the part of this presentation is a good practice of Lodzkie region with focus on LCA training and capacity building. And good practices for other regions will be presented tomorrow. And exceptionally, Lodzkie region, part of this is presented, is going to be presented right now. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it was a very important remark.
Okay, thank you, Andrzej. But for me, it's a sign that you can hear me well and you can see me well. And just please confirm if you can see my presentation.
Yes, that's visible, and we can hear you perfect.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really honored to be a part of this event and have the chance to tell you about our practices and what Lodz University of Technology can do for the region and for the whole humanity. Well, good manners say that first you should introduce yourself, okay? So a few words about me, but then a little bit more about the university. Now you've seen on the agenda for this meeting that Lodz University of Technology has really a great representation. So you will hear a lot about the different projects and the different good practices tomorrow also and the day after tomorrow. So today, I want to give you just a short overview, just to set the scene of all our activities, but also with the main focus on the good practice Andrzej has just mentioned. So as Andrzej said, I'm the chair for the Center of Teaching and Learning. So basically I'm responsible for the curricular changes in our educational offer. So definitely I'm going to comment on that a little bit. Myself, I'm an admin, but also an academic teacher. So yeah, education, but also those organizational management things that are my daily bread and butter. And as for the university, just let me start with a few facts and figures. Now, as you can see, we are quite old. Turning 75 last year. but no means an old-fashioned university. On the contrary, we are renowned for our innovative approach to teaching, to career opportunities. We have great relationships with the employers and the business sector. We educate more than 12,000 students at bachelor and master programs, and 40% of them are women. So a technical university, but women are well represented here. We offer 63 study programs at 9 faculties. The quality of education has been confirmed by top rankings by some accrediting institutions. Right now, we are ranked the 5th among all technical universities in Poland. We are also an international university with hundreds of international agreements, with dozens of international projects done within Erasmus and other programs. And just to give you a foretaste of what we actually do and where, I'd like to show you a short video. Let's hope we will have no technical problems. Here we go.
Science benefits us all. Thousands of times smaller than successfully scientific effort and long-term research improve the effectiveness of currently treatment methods. So not science fiction, but so Lodz University of Technology, they are the stars, cell-based polymers, open chapter in the life of people transplants. This is the cutting edge of science. Science turns today's ideas into tomorrow's reality. Flexible, wirelessly powered, geovision, and electronic devices will become. This is where the tireless detail and perseverance of the past in discovery most importance. So you use counterfeit proof. Changes. So that seemingly chaotically distributed files could be information carriers of science. Complicated architectural structures can be constructed based on detailed 3D models. This helps to make the landscape of our daily existence original and functional too. Something unique. Structures. For a long time, the city has been restoring post-industrial buildings and converting them into teaching facilities. Students have also initiated a number of urban projects. series that includes a 3D an ounce of character animation, and also metamorphoses into a self-assured creator. Computer game is just the beginning. University of Technology.
Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed the movie, and you could already spot a few examples of our environmental decisions, of the environmental research we carry out at our university. But here we met today just to talk about education, basically. Still, education never comes in isolation. That is why I wanted to show you a little bit of our research world and a little bit of our campus. Now, there are a lot of strategic organizational decisions which very much determine the way we teach. And I think that one of such decisions, yeah, of course, there are numerous decisions like that. It doesn't take, you know, just a night or a day to implement LCA into practice. But in my talk today, I would like to focus just on the most recent, let's say, 2 or 3 year activities, just to show you, let's say, what we are doing right now. And one of such strategic decisions made by our rector was to create a new task force or a team of experts, decision makers and students, a team for sustainable development. Now, we wanted, first of all, to investigate how aware our academic community is of the Sustainable Development Goals agenda set out by the United Nations. So the initial initiative we undertook was to carry out a survey and ask our students and employees what they know about sustainability. Much to our surprise, the results showed that about 40% of employees and even more 60% of students have hardly ever heard about SDGs. So the next step for us was then to think of an internal audit, so we wanted now to step on a kind of a self-discovery journey, just to see what we have already done, what we are doing, just to be ready for the 2030 agenda. Now, a huge report is now being collated by our experts, trying to identify the activities for all 17 goals. Now, the next step would be, of course, to publish that just as a means of communication with our stakeholders, to show them and to make them more aware of the activities, and also to set out short-term and long-term goals for the university and for the region. Now, another decision, or another, let's say, process which is still in progress, is to build a greener and greener campus. We don't want just to teach, you know, theory. We want to set a good example and show in practice, let's say, the best of our own. Now, in the video already, you could see some of our beautiful old buildings converted into teaching facilities. But I must say that our campus is becoming greener and greener. We've got, let's say, all we need, right? A lot of greenery, water. We've got a wonderful park. We've got a typical for Łódź, a One Earth joining our two campuses. And we are moving even further. Now, on the right, you can see a picture of our new investment. That is a passive building. An investment worth over 9 million zlotys, so a totally sustainable building, relying on green technologies, photovoltaic cells, energy saving lighting, and so on and on. Now, Also, just to limit the carbon footprint, our rectors have decided to implement a new document management system, an electronic one, just to limit the number of waste paper. So that's going to start on January the 1st, 2022. So a totally new initiative. But there are a lot of also bottom up initiatives. One of such is the Green Idea Box. So these are the ideas of our employees, of our students, just to make the environment a little bit more friendly, environment friendly, and also just to increase our well-being. And the recent award-winning ideas, just to name a few examples, are let's say a flowery meadow with beehives or hedgehog shelters, or more stands for bicycles, and so on and on. So we are still, you know, improving the environment. Okay, but today we've met to talk about teaching and education. So let me shortly talk about our full-time programs. Now, Professor Nitkiewicz told us about the training needs for our region and said that, well, those needs are almost satisfied, or they are satisfied by education providers. Lodz University of Technology can boast of 4 full-time programs which fully implement the methodology of life cycle assessment, and you can see them in the slide. So environmental engineering, bioeconomy, management and production engineering, and then our 2 latest programs on offer, a master program, Energy Systems in the Built Environment, provided by the Faculty of Process and Environmental Engineering, a program run totally in English, and another one, a very fresh program on the market, Information Technology in Environmental Protection. That's a joint effort of 2 faculties, Faculty of Chemistry and Faculty of Electrical, Electronic, Computer and Control Engineering. So as you can see, the Lodz region is well equipped with top experts in that field. But the good practice I would like to share with you for the Lodzkie region is a unique program of LCA module. Now, we have a long-standing experience of those full-time programs on life cycle thinking, okay? And we thought that it would be a nice idea if all our graduates would be aware of the environmental impact their products and services have. Now, engineering education is mostly about design. So we want to make sure that our students will be able to design for sustainability and design for recycling. That is why, starting from 2019, we introduced an obligatory module of life cycle assessment into all our bachelor curricula, independent of, you know, the specialty or the field of study. So yeah, right now, this, as I said, this has been introduced in programs starting from 2019, and right now we are just in the middle of the implementation process. Now, the whole project started much earlier, somewhere around 2017, with some pilot projects with commodity science and other programs. And then we applied for some funds to our ministry, and we did receive some funds to prepare the contents and also the infrastructure for this module. What it looked like, just at an operational level. So we asked a few experts from that field, from different faculties, actually from the Faculty of Process and Environmental Engineering, Civil Engineering, and Chemistry. We asked them to think about the concept for this module, okay, and then to start working on the learning outcomes and on the contents. Now, it took them a few months to prepare the whole syllabus and the whole curriculum together with the teaching materials. They tested a few software applications, a commercial one, which proved to be a little bit too expensive. So we turned to an open source application. Well, last week, we started kind of massive training to teachers from other faculties. Yeah, how to operate on those software and what to do with the teaching materials. So starting from October the 1st, when our academic year begins, we are going to welcome over 1,000 of students actually doing and studying this module. When it comes to money, you might ask, well, is it an expensive investment? As usual, it depends a little bit on the infrastructure you already have. Luckily, we did not have to buy any computers. Now, all faculties are well equipped with the hardware. We've got lots of laboratories, so it only takes time and then the know-how of the people to actually make that happen. Probably just for future reference, I copied here on this slide just extracts from our syllabus, just to give you a glimpse of what we actually do. Okay. Now, we have already borne some fruits. As I said, we've run some pilot projects. A few groups of students have already undergone that training, and the results can be visible in our award-winning student projects. So I've put just a few examples just to tell you what the students are really capable of, how creative and how aware they are of the responsibility that lays on them. Yeah, what you can see here, well, our intelligent beehives, right, or those small wind turbines, or our solar car, world-winning. Also some computer applications for waste recognition done by production engineering students, or reusable packaging for courier services, or biofoil with chicory, yeah, totally biodegradable, or something which is called an aquaingon, well, a system for recycling of rainwater. So these are just a few examples we can boast of. Now, all of these would probably be not possible if it hadn't been for an ongoing and open dialogue with the stakeholders. Again, our time is running short, so just to name a few. Now, yeah, well, total, let's say, continuous dialogue with the business sector. So close collaboration in the different clusters, the ICT Poland cluster, energy wave cluster, or bioeconomy cluster. We also meet regularly with the local society via kind of a blog series, Ecologics with Tool, where we invite experts from our university to talk about those environmental issues. We also meet at international arenas. the latest events. We've been a part of at different forums, like the one even we have today. But yeah, the ones that can serve a good example are Smart and Livable Cities Forum in Denmark, or the Boma Momentum Viewing Party in France, where we talked about ecology, equality, social responsibility. You will hear tomorrow about our Erasmus partnership projects, like the Design for Climate, or our new undertaking for the EU Green Deal, a huge project embracing 34 countries, the Frontship one, where they discuss, let's say, the issues of plastic, rubber waste, wooden waste, food and water, and so on and on. Okay, that's probably all I wanted to share in such a short time. I probably overran it a little bit, but I'm ready for any questions you might have. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the great presentation about our university and our offer connected with life cycle assessment. Do you have any questions about this presentation? Professor Nitkiewicz probably is going to ask some question. Please ask.
Just a brief comment. I would like to underline and appreciate the efforts to empower students with LCA competences. I think this is the best way of getting life cycle thinking going. Just to include graduates, first students, then graduates within this approach, and then make it happen by themselves. So they would possibly join all the stakeholders, organizations, companies within LCA. So just a word of appreciation for that strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this comment. Yeah, we think that when we first equip the students with the basics of LCA, they can later on implement this knowledge into all their design projects they do throughout their studies and later in their future professional lives and careers.
And the last question by Jolanta.
Yes, thank you, Angie, and thank you, Ada, for nice presentation, and congratulations for your university. I can't imagine that all bachelor's programs could include as obligatory life cycle assessment. I never heard at any university in Europe such a case that all programs had life cycle assessment. So congratulations for you, and
thank you very much.
Your presentation. Thank you very much.
We knew this is unique in Poland, but if you say this is also unique in Europe, then we are.
I do not know. Maybe my knowledge is very low or very limited, but I never heard. We participate at EQ universities, and I know that a lot of very innovative universities, they use LCA in different programs, on different levels, bachelor's, master's, PhD, but obligatory for all bachelor's programs. I never heard about that. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you a lot. Okay, so I wish you, let's say, wonderful time, inspirational meetings, inspirational discussions, and yeah, just hear more about our university projects. Thank you very much again.
Thank you once again for the interesting presentation. And now, according to our agenda, we are going to listen to the last presentation for today, given by the representative of industrial sector, and this is namely the industrial company Pietrucha Group, Dawid Jasiński, who is the geotechnical engineer and design advisor, and he's going to show you the presentation titled cooperation between science and business for the development of life cycle assessment. Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor, for introducing me. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. And it will be a pleasure to share our experience regarding the life cycle assessment and the cooperation between the science and business, because since we applied the life cycle assessment regarding our products, we grab some fruits from the grant. So it's 2 years very fruitful in one market. So, but I would like to start from the history of our company, show our portfolio and what we are doing in the world. So, history of our company starts in 1960. On the beginning, it was a small family business, but in 90s, the company has been transformed into the plastic processing plant. Currently, it's run by the third generation of Pietrucha family, so it's a family business. We are operating globally. We possess 2 manufacturing plants in Poland and 1 manufacturing plant in Philippines, and possess a lot of subsidiaries and distributors around the world. We have 30 years experience in plastic processing. We possess advanced machine park and own R&D division and own laboratory that in continuous way controlling the quality of our products. We are working with accordance to the quality management system ISO and constantly cooperate with world-leading research institutions. The company core products are vinyl sheet piles widely used in civil and water engineering, hybrid sheet piles combining the advantages of PVC and fiberglass reinforcement for increased strength of products, and also geogrids, which is a special type of geosynthetics. Since last year, we in our offer have a mobile flood protection system called Flood Warden. Thanks to this solution, our clients, private clients, can protect their properties against the heavy rain consequences. But back to our main product, the vinyl sheet pile. What is it, and what are the advantages of using this type of solution? First of all, is durable, resistant, and watertight solution. It's not corrosive in any way. It is also resistant very much for chemical and biological factors. Because of the low weight of material, we have savings of cost and time since very beginning, even from the transport stage, because we can load much more square meters of material on the lorries when we compare to the common steel sheet piles. Because of the environmental, because of the recycling process, they are very environmental friendly and very aesthetical because we can produce them in every color. Thanks to our experience, we are able to provide to our clients full service from the design to the transport and also installation stage. There is a wide scope of applications for this solution, from the retaining system with anchors or without anchors, river bank protection and regulation, reinforcement of the flood banks and cut-off walls in ecologically treated areas. Now I would like to show you some projects made around the world related to the management of water level, and also related to the environmental protection. For example, here on the US Embassy in Bangkok, we built water reservoir to keep the water in one place during summertime. Actually, in Thailand, it's always summertime. But yeah. Okay, those photos showing the construction works. Now it's a finished project. I think it's a much better solution with that kind of projects, because steel sheet piles are corrosive. So after a couple of years, probably it have to be replaced. Our vinyl sheet piles, we are giving the guarantee for 50 years, but I think it's gonna stay much longer in the ground. Here, a project in Zbiornik Goczałkowicki in Poland, southern Poland. We built an artificial island for birds. There was a big problem because of the various levels during the summertime. The birds built a nest and have some eggs, but during the various water levels, the nests were destroyed and a lot of small birds died. So we had to build a very safe place for them. And those photos showing almost finished project. From the news, we know that that birds very like this kind of construction, this kind of projects, and I think today we start building a lot of more islands around this Zbiornik Goczałkowicki in southern Poland. Another project in Philippines, protection of the UNESCO heritage area. Because of the also various water levels waves, probably in the next 10 or 20 years, this island gonna disappear completely. So we had to protect against the water erosion effect. Project in Łódź related to the environmental protection. The problem occurred in this place was related to the contamination of the fuel and diesel. During the heavy rain, all the pollution going to the agricultural fields. So we had to build a completely watertight cut-off wall around this area to keep this contamination in one place and go to the sewage. Other photos, and now I would like to show you the movie from the installation of the water retention system forest, for example. Second type of products we are producing is geogrids, special type of geosynthetics with rigid integral nodes. The biggest advantages of using this type of geosynthetics in, for example, railway or roads projects is saving the amount of aggregate, because in the way it works, we increasing the bearing capacity of the whole layer of aggregate under the road, and we can save the amount of aggregate, so we don't have to use so much resources from the ground. So also much lower carbon footprint related to the transport, etc., etc. And this product can be used in asphalt, concrete roads, railways, forest. And also, for example, on the wind farms, there is 3 examples of projects we made so far in wind farms, electricity plants. almost half million square meters of our geogrids were used to building the technological access roads and working platforms. But going to the main topic, 2 years ago, Professor Marcinkowski from Lodz University of Technology, for our request, made an analysis, the comparative life cycle assessment of PVC sheet piles, also steel sheet piles. Because we mainly focus on the Dutch market, Netherlands, because as you for sure know that they have a big potential problem with floods because they actually under the level of the sea. So they have a big demand for this type of products, steel sheet piles and also vinyl sheet piles. The second reason is that because they are very care about the environment. So we're trying to convince clients in Dutch market to use our products, and we put a most likely scenario. Our vinyl sheet piles were produced in Błaszki in our manufacturing plant and transported to the Amsterdam. The steel sheet piles were produced in Kraków and also transported to the Amsterdam. So the difference in distance is about 200 kilometers. The type of construction project we assume was protection of the shoreline of the water reservoir. So for the steel sheet piles, we assume two types of water environmental. One, very mild water conditions, so we choose for this 7 millimeter steel sheet piles. But for the salt water, we had to assume much thicker steel sheet piles because of the corrosion effect. So we choose a 15 millimeters steel sheet pile. Because our vinyl sheet piles are not corrosive in any way, we choose from our portfolio 6.4 millimeter thick vinyl sheet piles. What is very important, we set up the type of the analysis called from the cradle to grave. So it takes into the account the entire life of product. So from the extracting the raw material from the ground, so using the resources, to its disposal, destroying or recycling. Through the whole cycle, we put such a data like energy consumption, the transport, the emission of greenhouses to the atmosphere, etc., etc. A lot of data, but those two are most important. And we finally got a lot of results. But I will show you the most important for us and also for our clients. For example, here we can see the three indicators related to the human health, ecosystem, and also resources. The biggest difference between the vinyl sheet piles and the steel sheet piles were in ecosystem. So, for example, in ecosystem, the 15 millimeters steel sheet piles are 8 times more harsh to the environment. Also, in the resources and human health, the differences are quite big. Well, in relation to the carbon footprint, the difference is much bigger even, because when we compare the 15 millimeter steel sheet piles and also our vinyl sheet piles, you can see that the difference is more than 9 times. And related to the 7 millimeter steel sheet piles, the difference is 4.4 times more. So as we see, our vinyl sheet piles, even if it's artificial material, is much more environmental friendly solution. Because we can recycle it, that the transport is not so harsh to the environment, etc., etc. So, as I said, we already grabbed some fruits from the ground because of the showing this life cycle assessment to the client. Because we send it to our distributor in Dutch market, and he spread it in all over the country, from the contractor companies to the design engineers and a lot of other person. And thanks to that, we can build a lot of projects with vinyl sheet piles. For example, in Vlissingen, we use our product GW580/11 to build yacht marina. It was a private client, so even private clients are taking care about the environmental much more than, for example, unfortunately in Poland. For example, in Benik Break, we use Superlog to protection of the canal. There is a project related to the flood levees because, as I said, the Netherlands have a big problem with floods, so they had to reinforce flood embankments, and they choose our products. We install even 11-meter long vinyl sheet piles into the ground. And another example of the small project related to the private client. Also, client were very happy because he has a very long lifespan of the project. So it's not corrosive and is very aesthetical during the whole life of the project. I think it was all what I wanted to share with you. And if you have some questions, I will be more than happy to answer to any. And I strongly invite to follow us on the LinkedIn and also Facebook, because you're gonna be updated on every new products related to the environmental aspect. Yeah, thank you for your attention. And I'm waiting for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Very practical one this time. Yes, and now that's perfectly timely our time according to the agenda for the questions and answers session. So who would like to ask some question connected with this project, this presentation? I can see Professor Tomasz Nitkiewicz. Would you please ask your question?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm also surprised on how environmentally responsible is your company concerning your products. My question is on your daily practice, but by this I mean the approach towards new solutions or new projects you are developing, new orders you have from your customers. Do you practice like life cycle assessment of all your products and projects, or is it just let's say an assessment of technological solutions, and according to these solutions then you assess or just decide which project, which product, which solution would be the best for the customer with regard to the environmental issues?
Okay, can you hear me? Oh, yeah. Okay, so in our industry, every project is very unique. So we have to look very in every project very in other way, because we have a big difference in assumptions, because we firstly put a lot of different data, like geology, the water, the water condition also. So if it's necessary, we are trying to convince our clients that our, for example, here vinyl sheet piles are more likely for for environmental protection, but also regarding the developing the products we have in our R&D division. We see that this way of work with clients is very fruitful, and we already have some conversation with Professor Marcinkowski to increase the volume of life cycle assessment to the particular products we have in our portfolio. So I think we're gonna spread the life cycle assessment to all over products we have in our portfolio, and in future we're gonna implement this this idea to convince the client that is very important to care about this.
Thank you very much for your response.
Very much for the question and especially the answer. And I can see Sandra Elia. Would you like to ask some question?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. And I would like to know if the vinyl that you use, it comes from recyclable material or from raw material?
So mostly it comes from the recycling material. But it's not old PVC. It's going to our manufacturer straight from the manufacturer of window frame. But they have some scraps after producing because they have to cut these window frames. So it's a quite fresh PVC. So we are using mostly recycled material to keep the resources, to keep, to not use so much resources from the ground. We're trying to use the material that is already in the market.
Thank you. Do you have any additional question? But I can see Dr. Fritz Balkau is going to ask his question once again. So please ask the question.
Thank you. Nice presentation. Always added something new, so I like that. What I'd like to know is if the clients are interested in the LCA. Do the clients typically ask questions around the way you have done the LCA results and so forth? So what is the involvement of the end clients with the LCA process?
For now, we made only one type of analysis. So as I said, we pushed most likely scenario for a Dutch market. But if it will be necessary in the future, I think it is possible to make analysis for other type of market. For example, on the different market like a USA, for example, or Asia market or Australia. Is just different data to have to be put in the beginning stage of the analysis. So if it will be necessary, but for now it didn't be necessary because so what we made so far is convince the clients in, I think, all markets, not only in the Netherlands, but also in Germany, in Scandinavian countries, in UK and in USA already.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any additional question? So, Dawid Jasiński. I cannot see. So once again, thank you very much for this presentation, for this practical one, and very interesting. And our final point for today is the summary. So now I would like to invite you to listen to the summary of the entire day given by Managing Director of Association of Cities and Regions for Sustainable Resource Management, Francesco Lembo.
Hello, and sorry for the technical issues we are having today, but we moved recently, but that's the better. We are adapting our infrastructure to smart working, so we are having some internet connection problem, but it was very interesting to follow the work today. And we will be happy to start tomorrow morning with key consideration coming from today's discussion. The TLJ we had today was a very good way to keep up the work on analyzing how concretely LCA methodologies can be applied into regional policy context. It was super interesting to understand a bit the difficulties and the strong point of the policy context of the Lodzkie region, and it was super interesting to starting match with specific analysis on training needs that are connecting public and private sectors in Poland. This is a big trend that we are seeing now moving on also in different and overlapping topics, starting from innovation strategy of regions and industrial symbiosis strategies. Tomorrow morning we will start with setting up. We just need a bit of time today to move a post-it board that we are preparing for you to start again with the key uptake from today's discussion to move on to the topics of the second day. So we will start discussing the good practices on training and capacity building from the key issues emerged from today. And for the moment, I wouldn't have much to add for the day, but I would be happy to start tomorrow working with you.
Okay, thank you very much for the summary, very interesting summary. And yes, so that's it. Basically, that's it for today. So thank you very much for your attention, for your activity, and I invite you for tomorrow session. Thank you very much once again. Have a good day.